Ah, now we're live. All right, good. Little Wi-Fi challenge there, but now we're on. All right, hi everybody. It's John Kilkenny, the director of the Swanee Summer Music Festival, and this is our continuing series of conversations with folks that are part of our Swanee family. And I'm thrilled to have the executive director of the Percussive Arts Society, Joshua Simonds, here with us today. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Hey man, how you doing? I'm doing great.
Good, good. It's good to have you here. So, you are a member of our National Advisory Board at Swanee. We're grateful for your work and contributions to our festival. And I wanted to talk to you today about a number of things. And I'm interested in knowing, as I am with everybody that we chat with, kind of knowing your trajectory, where how you came through and landed in this executive role, both at PAS, but kind of the journey that you took through there, where you started as a musician, all of that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you emerged through this profession and what led you to this executive role.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate being here, and as you mentioned, I am on the national advisory, and I think just the world of Swanee. I never was able to actually attend a musical summer camp. Not that I couldn't have, but it just wasn't in the cards for me as younger, and I did get to visit Swanee just a year or so ago for the first time, and just how beautiful it was, and then seeing all the students who get to benefit from it, and so I'm really lucky to be able to sit and help whenever I can. Obviously, youth music education is a really important part of just my own philosophy, and it actually was a big part of, it's been a big part of my jobs since, I left school. So music education in general, I thought I was going to be my parents are both public school teachers, not music teachers, but were public school teachers and administrators. I thought I was going to take that direction of being a band director. Actually, I thought that was going to be my trajectory. I think that when you go to college as a music student, they offer on a whole two majors, right? It's like performance or education. So therefore, students who are relatively young, even if you're 22 and graduating, you're still pretty young. It's like, okay, performance through education degree. I have to be a performer. I have to be a teacher.
Yep. It's a
And
huge problem we have in our field, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, I shouldn't say a huge problem, but it's definitely an issue and I say this all the time, and I'm just going to interrupt you, and I'm sorry to do that. But,
no,
we anytime you talk to pre-college students and even college students, this idea that it's a binary choice, right? I'm not really sure I want to be a band director. I'm not really sure I want to play. So I guess I'll stop participating in music. And trying to get the message out that there are so many paths in our profession,
yeah,
and so
that's
you
fine.
you took you
I
you took
did.
a path, yeah.
I did, and I'm lucky that I'm very fortunate that I had an upbringing where I saw that my parents exposed me to culture and and whatnot. But like my mom took this role. She was a teacher, then became an administrator, and was like, okay, my mom is an amazing teacher, but she went to this other and it was about also what was out there. A lot of traveling when we were younger, really kind of opening your eyes up. And I know I'm jumping around, but I think, for me, it was this. I spent my junior year in England for a year, which was really big for me. It was an opportunity. You leave that comfort zone. I picked up, and it wasn't just a semester. I did a full year, and it was an opportunity to really kind of explore the world outside of this. Like, you go to college every day, you go to university, and you're your friends, and you practice whatever. And I said, you know what, for a year, I'm going to go somewhere else. And while I'm there, I'm going to travel and I'm going to learn stuff. And it's just it's that whole idea of you can learn so much outside the classroom. And so that was my junior year. And when I came back from England, my older brother, who was actually in law school at the time, landed this internship. Now, a law school internship is much different than a nonprofit internship. I think he made more as an intern than I currently make right now. But but
I
yeah,
understand.
but I was like, hey, that's a great idea, and I randomly just picked up the phone. I went to school at Long Beach State in California, good beach, and I picked up the phone and I called the Long Beach Symphony, and I said, hey, do you want an intern? And they said, yeah, come on down. And, for those who have seen, I have the same story, it never changes, but it's the truth. I went in there and they introduced me to everybody. And one of the first people I spoke to was a woman named Lisa Bury, who was still a huge mentor of mine. And they said, well, we're going to have you work with Lisa in our development department, and you're going to be the development intern. Do you have any questions? And I said, yeah.
What is development? Right.
Like 21-year-old percussion major, like, what's development? And I went there a few times a week and helped. And, she said, and then there was all files, right? Every letter that came in and check, copied. And she said, read everything before you file it. And it was just this like, okay, and then introduction to the operations staff, and get to do more about, just, front of house, back of house, personal management. We share a common connection. Obviously, the conductor of the Long Beach Symphony, when I was an intern, was one Joanne Falletta.
Yes.
And,
great Joanne Falletta, yeah.
And the best part of my internship and then part-time job was getting to pick Joanne up at the airport.
That's awesome.
And get that 30 minutes with Joanne, a few times a year, and it was amazing. And, Joanne and I still, talk probably once a year now, either whether it's a Sewanee thing or if she comes to the Symphony or when she would come to Chicago. But, huge part. And Joanne actually was someone who actually said, we need more leaders like you in our field who really appreciate the administrative side of things.
Well, Joanne is right, and I think she was right that and I think if she said that yesterday in an interview, she would still be right. I mean, it is an issue. You and I have talked about it offline. It's clear pre-COVID. It's even more clear now. As great of a job as we do in the United States of teaching performers and educators, and we've got a system down for getting a student prepared to a certain degree to stand in front of students in a school setting or to teach or to play. There's still kind of a gap there in the training of our administrators, and both in the academic arena, which I live in, and in the nonprofit world, which I'm also involved with. It's kind of startling to see how little we spend, other than a handful of arts management programs that exist, to varying degrees of quality, quite frankly, pretty widespread for such a small number of places, that we really don't. We still struggle with that. I think as an industry, we still struggle with that. I'm not saying that's your opinion. It's definitely mine. But
I think people come to it later, as opposed to making it part of their studies. Because even if you're not going to go into administration, you want to be a professional musician. Wouldn't it be helpful if you understood what it takes to run the organization which you want to work for? Because the other part I was going with this, when I went to my teachers at Long Beach, I studied with the late, great Dr. Michael Carney, as well as Rainer Carroll, who was the principal percussion of the LA Phil, and percussion there, all have his books, and both of them supported me, but they both said, but you still need to be a great musician. You go into administration, but you still need to be a great musician. You still need to understand what you're doing and understand the art form. And they were 100% right, but why isn't it the other way around? Why don't great musicians and great teachers need to understand everything happening in the background? I think that we probably all work together a lot better if everyone understood what the other person was going through, or how the organization is run. And so just some really basic things. When I speak to universities, they're all taking, music theory, music history, which is all great, right? But how many of them know how to use QuickBooks in order so they can do an invoice to make sure they're getting paid from their private students, right? Or create an invoice if they're having, right? There's basic simple things that we can be teaching people to help them that are not directly, talking about pedagogy.
Well, and at the risk of getting in, Whatever. I think that we could look at curriculums for a lot of music schools. I'm not going to name any one, but a lot of them, and say, boy, we put an enormous amount of time into, figured bass, or into, well, we'll just stick with figured bass because I think everybody really hates figured bass. But we don't spend any time with, or very little time with what you're talking about. And even like some of the most successful talks I've ever done have been with students where we go through things like cartage and doublings and joining the union and what that means. And, this is all stuff I kind of learned on the street. And I was really lucky to go to, I mean, I went to school in New York. And so I was in that environment. I studied with Jonathan Haas before that. So I, at an early age, was working with somebody who was very connected to the business world. And, and so.
But Jonathan's a great example. So who understands both, right?
Right. Yeah.
Background and 100%. Yeah.
And it's benefited me professionally and personally that I have an understanding of that, because I've been able to, not only continue working, irrespective of what's going on, but, I even think about orchestral musicians. So let's say you're lucky enough and you work hard enough and the stars align and you win your job in an orchestra. If you don't understand how to negotiate a contract, if you don't understand what it means to deal with personnel manager and executive directors, and we have all seen orchestras that have suffered from, suddenly now realizing that they have to know what their executives are up to because some of their executives weren't doing a very good job, right? And the orchestra musicians were kind of letting that happen over there and thinking they didn't need to know what was going on.
Right.
But boy, it's a good thing that, now you have all these, websites and, the Met Orchestra musicians, and, Philly did for many years, kind of was doing that. And so it's important, even if you are going to be in an orchestra, that you have a really clear understanding about how the business of your orchestra works. And you got to learn that before you get into the job, or you might be in trouble. So
yeah,
sorry, this is not about me, it's about you, but I'm just agreeing with what you're saying.
And I have a little different, kind of feeling about things and I appreciate, you walk a fine line when you become an administrator, right? Because you have a lot of friends and peers who are professional musicians, but you also have a lot of friends who are busting their butt as an administrator, making sure that the musician, right? And it's this, and you see this back and forth, and it can be frustrating because both sides don't sometimes feel like the other person is doing what they, what they think they should be doing, or you can't do this without me. Oh, you can't do this without me. Exactly. Everyone needs to be together, and in those organizations that can form, really be a cohesive group, and not musicians and administrators, right? But if you can be blank symphony orchestra, that's a really important thing. Like the symphony orchestra, the association is everybody. But if you think that it's musicians and everybody else, or administration and everybody, depending on what side you're coming from, that's just you're going to fail. I mean, I think that comes from the top down, to create that environment. But as you said, these are things that unfortunately, you're learning on the street. You're not, no one's coming in and taking classes. I do think that during this pandemic time, there have been more opportunities for these kind of guest speakers for people to really ask questions. I've been doing a ton of them and getting people. I mean, I had this nice percussion major email me. I throw my email address in everywhere, and was like, before you came, I thought I was destined to be a middle school band director. And, and now maybe there are a lot of other things I can do where my passion is, and I can still, as I always say, be part of the team. It's like that sport, I'm a big sports fan, that sports analogy. Only so many people are going to be on the court at once, or in the field. But, you have stadium operations, you have, all the trainers. If you love something, you can still be part of it, even if you're not directly, in our case, playing the notes. And that doesn't make what you do any less. And I think that we all have to really believe that. Musicians have to believe that about the administration. The administration has to, not, if you wanted to be a full-time performer, but you're not, you can't hold that against those who did. Hopefully you made that choice. I made that choice early on to say, I want to do this job. I could have done the whole, hey, I can go try to be that, but I want to do this job. I really enjoy this side of things. It's definitely not a job where it's, well, I'll do that until I get you know, when I was in
Right.
Chicago, I wouldn't hire even a part-time person. I wouldn't hire anyone who basically was like biding their time.
Right. And I want to talk about Chicago because I know that was a big part of your career before PAS. I just want to mention, I'm really glad that middle school, that teacher, that percussionist emailed you, because what the world needs, the world does not need another person teaching who doesn't want to
Who
teach.
doesn't want to teach?
You know, I mean,
100%.
it,
Yeah,
it just drives me crazy, again, as someone who teaches a lot of music education majors, right? I mean, that's, a big, third to half of my studio at Mason at any one time are music ed students. And boy, it scares the heck out of me to think that any of those young players might not want to do this,
right,
because
right.
my goodness, we need people who are passionate about it in the classroom with the next generation.
Yeah.
So,
Find your place. It's not just about finding your best talent, right? It's not about finding your place on the bus. It's about being in the right seat on the bus. Everyone needs to be in the place, the specific place, right? Those great teachers, and then we need to support those people who are so dedicated and passionate about teaching. And we know that they're there. And if you're not that, that's not a fallback job. Administration isn't a fallback job. Performing isn't a fallback job. If you really want to do something else, just because you've also played your instrument for 30 years, if it's not what you want to do and you're not happy, then don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just finished a residency with Third Coast Percussion at Mason, and a fairly big part of the discussion we had with Third Coast, which they're going to continue having with our arts management students later in November. I mean, they're coming back. We're doing this whole Zoom world we're living in now. But a big part of the discussion was, how do you structure your organization? Third Coast is a nonprofit. They're self-managed. They have an executive director. They have created this whole thing, and none of those four, the four members of Third Coast, created it and built it, and none of them have degrees in that, right? I mean, they all have incredible, pedigrees from great institutions, but they figured out how to do that. And again, they figured it out in various ways, and they're not the only ones. I mean, the So guys did this, and people generations before. I don't want to leave anybody out, but the point is, if we could figure out a way to make it part of the curriculum, what kind of a better industry would we have, right? If everybody had an understanding of how this worked, even if that meant maybe they didn't have an understanding of, I'm going to keep picking on figured bass because I really hated figured bass when I was in school. But at any rate, I want to get away from attacking Baroque music for a minute. And I want to, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said, yeah, stop attacking all of our early music fans out there.
Yeah, I know. I'm good. I'm making enemies. So you're in California. You study UC Long Beach, and you stumbled into an internship. And I would suggest anybody that wants to do this, if you pick up the phone and call any arts organization and say, "Hey, I want to come work for you," they're probably going to say yes. They're probably going to find a way to help for free. For free, especially if it's for free. But you ended up going and getting your arts management master's degree at American University, right?
University in Washington, D.C., yeah.
What was that like? And then where'd you go after AU? And talk to us about Chicago.
Yeah, so Long Beach was amazing. I'm originally from California, did my degree there. And then I decided that I was going to continue on this journey of learning more about arts management. So American University, back when I went to get my grad degree, there weren't a ton of arts management programs. And what really attracted me to AU was that a big part of your graduate degree is seeing firsthand what's happening, right? And in Washington, D.C., there was the opportunity to obviously see nonprofit, for-profit, and then government institutions, So you really had everything in your backyard to be able to go and talk to people, and as opposed to a different city where there was 4 arts organizations, and it's just the same thing. So you could get a great education, but I'm definitely someone who it's that hands-on, inside, talking, asking questions. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and I remember the date, August 4th, 2001. So the world changed about 5 weeks later.
Yeah, timing, huh?
Yeah. So the first month or so, it's weird, and then right away, we're living in a post 9/11 world. And that was the first, that was the first kind of what do we do moment. And to be in grad school, then that, I think, I've now lived through in my professional world already, 9/11, the financial crisis of 08, 09, and now the pandemic, and have been involved in arts management in all three of those times. So, and all three are different. And some, they've all been different, but each one has kind of helped you just understand and maybe at a minimum understand that we'll get out of this.
Yeah, I was just thinking that,
Yeah.
I came back to DC in May of 2001 after finishing grad school. So I was just out of my master's and came back here. So yeah, I remember it was
Yeah,
weird.
it was it was eerie, but so that happened. But the grad work, what it was that it was really about diving into very specific instances and getting to know more philosophy and getting into case studies and being able to talk to leaders who were already doing it, from all around the country, and that was very beneficial. It also, I still talk to a lot of my cohort from AU, a great network of people who, went into all fields, theater management and other nonprofits and museums,
Museums.
and you name it, and then different, there are some executives, there are some people who have been incredible director of development and marketings now, so people don't say I want to be. Not everyone wants to be executive director. I don't know if I set out to be executive director. I had an amazing time in Chicago when I oversaw all the artistic stuff, right? Like general manager, artistic, like that was, so fun, and really great. And executive directors, we have a different pressure on us.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so at AU, it was an opportunity to really understand all of that and get into marketing, get into development, get into executive, get into strategic planning, and you name it, and just really give yourself that 2 years of real specific information, and then get some hands-on experience with, checking out anything that you're interested in. For me, it was obviously the National Symphony. At that point, it was all about orchestras, right? And so but then doing something you haven't done before, right? So I actually called up the NSO library, because when else can you you get a development internship and marketing, whatever, but I was like, what's it like in the library, right?
It's a whole other universe, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable what they do. Yeah.
yeah, and it is a hard job, and
Yes.
there would be time that the head librarian at that time, because at the NSO during then 20 years ago, where it was, and maybe it's moved since, I'm not sure what the offices are like now, it was kind of this congregating place for musicians and people. And it was this, there'd be coffee, people would come in and talk, whatever. But there would be times that Marcia, who's the head librarian then, would basically be like, everybody out. And,
Right.
it was like her and another person and another assistant, and it was just like, get all the parts and get out.
Yeah.
I got to be there for the Concert for America.
Mm.
And that was like, wow, crisis, yeah, we have to put on a concert for this thing that just happened, right? We still have a job to do. And so we're having to mourn, but also say we have a job to do still, right?
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to kind of see that. It was just the dynamic, it was a different area of the organization that you don't get to see. And this is back to this understanding all the parts,
Right.
Everyone is going through something, and you have more empathy. You work together. You can appreciate that. If the musician is running in and, oh, there's my music. Well, guess what? Someone spent a lot of time getting that, making sure this all that, and then as soon as you're on stage, they're getting ready for the very next concert.
The steepest learning curve I had, which I never would have thought if you had asked me this 2 years ago when I became the director at Swanee, was the library. work that they do at a music festival. And and that was one of the first hires I made. And I was really proud of myself. I made a good one. And Ali Verteber, she just finished a New World, and now she's got the job at the Austin, was a librarian with the Austin Symphony. And I mean, I just did everything she told me to do. She wanted to order something, ordered it. I just quietly did everything because she made that experience for the students seamless, and just, yeah, I think it's so easy to overlook that. I mean, there's obviously plenty of other parts to orchestras that also make things work, but boy, if you have a great librarian and they've got a system and they can manage their team, I mean, it's just it's incredible how easy that process is, and equally incredible how much that can throw. I mean, I've been on both sides of it as a player, where I've had orchestras with great librarians and orchestras, that didn't have that, and it's a disaster. And you're in the middle of a rehearsal, and the conductor, anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you know that you have a librarian, thank them. It is a thankless job. It is a thankless job, and when I was in Chicago, we made sure that we didn't have a librarian. We had operations assistants who had to make sure all the music, we were running 5, 6, 7 orchestras and, 100 kids in each one. It was crazy, right? I mean, and some of them would just be like, hey, we're going to, some of the part-timers were like, hey, can we come in? And they would like copy music from like 10 o'clock at night until 3 o'clock in the morning, because it was like, no one's going to be around and the copy machine was going to be open, and they could just like, put music out everywhere and stuff all the folders. I was like, yeah, because you have to understand it and be like, no, we work 9 to 5 in the office. No, like spread out the table and get it done, and so understanding just what it takes. And I think that's a big part of the master's degree, going back to that, is really understand. You get a little snippet of everything that has been, and then you start to move into where you really want to concentrate as a professional. Mm-hmm. But the master's was a great opportunity for me, and it was an investment. I didn't get my first job because I had a master's degree in arts management. It's not like, just because you get a master's in music doesn't mean you're going to get a job right away, right?
Right.
You're investing in yourself, your time that you're getting to spend on learning. And so it really is an investment. Education is an investment. And that, is it paying off now? Yes. But obviously, your first job, my first job as an operations, I don't know, my job. Right. Operations UI. So wasn't, because they're like, oh, he has a master's degree, let's hire him.
Right. And how long were you with Chicago Youth Symphony? I mean, I know you had a couple of different roles with them, right? And left and came back and all that. Yeah.
So moved there in 2003 and moved to Indianapolis for PAS in 2016.
Wow. Okay.
And then there was 1 year in between where I went back to Washington, D.C. just for exactly a year and then back again. So I thought my life was going to take a different route, and then Chicago came calling back again. So so different roles over that time, but a great opportunity, there. So.
And now you run PAS. So I know probably a lot of drummers checking this out, but for the handful of people that might not be, and for everybody, tell us about PAS. Tell us what you do there. I know we've got the PASIC conference coming up. We're going to take a minute to chat about that, but talk about PAS. Kind of what was your process in going there, and I mean, obviously coming back to your roots as a percussionist, I'm sure had something to do with it, but. Tell us all about PAS.
A lot to do with it. So Percussive Arts Society, we are the largest organization dedicated specifically to research and performance and education for drummers and percussionists around the world. So we're a membership organization. And we are, next year will be the 60th anniversary of PAS. One of the longest and oldest membership music organizations, around membership organizations. We have colleagues of every type, whether it's the International Trumpet Guild or the Viola Society or the Flute Association. Everyone has. I do believe we're the largest. We also, percussion obviously is a very large field in itself. And at PAS, we have everything from symphonic, marching, drum set, world, research, interactive drumming, health and wellness. Probably forgot something, and someone will
Someone will let you know.
Someone will
as
let me
the,
know.
right.
You can check it all out at pas.org. So anyway,
Exactly.
but we have a lot of programs. We run a museum here in Indianapolis, Rhythm Discovery Center, which really kind of started off as just a lot of our collections. Part of PAS is also to preserve the history of percussion, and we decided 10 years ago as an organization to turn that into a museum here in Indianapolis. So that is,
which is super cool. I have to say, I'm sorry to cut you off, interrupt you, but like I've been fortunate to be able to tour tour it, and then also kind of get the sort of private backstage tour that I'm sure a lot of people get. But you've taken several of us through the back area a few times. It's just incredible. I mean, talk about like, if you're a percussionist, if you're a drummer, it's heaven. So like when we could all travel again, when we could, be in the same building,
yes.
check out Rhythm Discovery Center, and definitely check out, if you can, like the behind the glass walls there and all the, famous drummer stuff and historical items you have. Cause it's very, very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, we've been taking, the museum has been closed since March 16th. And
Wow.
we don't anticipate to open again. We have a target date right now of Martin Luther King weekend, weekend. So mid-January is our target. And those who work specifically for the museum, we have transitioned them to essentially be doing a lot of cataloging. And if you can imagine, we have this giant museum, but there's tables and stuff everywhere just with archives out and pictures and database going in. And we're essentially, we turned it into as much as positive as we can. Hey, what can we do to get ahead during this time? Invest in that future. And so we've been doing that. So I'm really proud of the team that they're doing that. And, we're, have we made income from the museum in 9 months? No. Are we ahead in this other area that we probably wouldn't have been in for 3 or 5 years? Yeah. And so, that's you have to quickly shift and think, okay, what can we do? What can we do? So anyway, so that's PAS. In addition, so we have scholarships, research, we have news article, we have magazine. We do have a big convention every year called PASIC or PASIC, depending on what generation you're from. And it's the same thing. Anyway, normally we would be a gathering of 5,000 to 6,000 drummers and percussionists, hobbyists, performance educators, researchers, you name it, from all around the world in Indianapolis for 4 incredible days. And this year we will be thousands of people online at PASIC until we can meet again. And so we are really looking forward to that. That's going to be on November 13th and 14th.
Well, and y'all made the decision pretty early to shift to the online platform, which was, of course, the right decision. But I at the time, we're all, any of us in this type of position, we're reflecting back on decisions that we made and thinking like, should we have done this sooner or later? Or, at Swanee, when we canceled the in-person program in the summer, my initial reaction was not to do anything. And then the faculty wanted to do some online programs. So we ended up doing, online programming in the summer that went really well, which was just, I'm glad I paid attention to what people wanted to do. Obviously you can't just cancel PASIC, right? I mean, you just can't do that for a myriad of reasons. But you made the decision early to shift online and clearly had to change some of what you're doing, but have kept many things the core of what the organization does. So what is the experience going to be like online? What kind of technology you're using? I mean, just tell us a little bit about what that's going to be like.
Yeah, we made the decision pretty early. I think that for some of us, it was pretty clear that this was not going to end anytime soon. And I remember hearing people say, "Oh, by June," I remember in March people saying, "By June, we're going to be up and fine again," whatever. And that was a conversation I had with some other people, and I said, "No, it's not." You could just tell that there was something different. And so internally, we made the decision that we had a plan A and a plan B. And I remember the board meeting specifically. They said, all right, plan A, plan B, we're going to do this virtually. And I had a great board member who said, I think we need to change those A's and B's. I think we need to make plan A virtual and plan B needs to become the in-person. And it was like, you're right. We know how to do the in-person thing. We could put that on the back burner because if for some reason we were going to able to do it, we have a great team here. We know how to do it. What we don't know how to do is the virtual part. And so we need to make that the priority. And so we did immediately, internally. And then we kept we kept juggling internally, like a little bit of both, but the in-person was kind of like, you know what, we're fine. Like, we know we can do it. We'll get people there. Like, there's a lot that actually happens in the last like chunk of time. But if we're going to do virtual, it needs to start now. And so we started to do that, and we shifted. And then we made the determination from a board, we're calling it. We are doing virtual regardless of what happens. And then there was a lot to happen in the background. There was contracts and all that kind of stuff that, and so we weren't going to make an announcement until we had figured out all that. There was a lot of people to have to tell and finances to work out and everything. But internally we had already known. And so when we made the announcement, it wasn't like that was day one. That was already, we were in it already.
Well into it, yeah.
Well into it. And so lucky for us, we had, in the amount of time that some people shifted and put on a convention or an online event, we were still in this, we were taking all that time just to research. And so we had the luxury of time that a lot of, unfortunately, colleagues of ours didn't have. But in some ways, then the stakes are higher for us, right? We've had a lot more time to figure this out. So, but I do think that it is going to be a great convention. Our goal has been to make it as similar to an in-person experience as it can be. That means a diverse offering of sessions.
Right.
That means similar, the similar day. That means having an expo hall still where you can get to actually talk to people
and hear things. Or are you gonna pipe in like incredibly loud drum set playing?
Right. Yeah. Just
to make it feel like a word home.
Right. Yes, we're gonna have just we're gonna give everybody a cymbal sounds just for.
That'd be great. If you could have all of the middle school percussionists come in at one time and play drum set, it just is a simulation, and that would be great.
You get
for anyone that hasn't been to a convention, this will make no sense, and for those of you that have been, you understand. So you're going to kind of make it as familiar as you can, changing. Obviously, it isn't online. For me, what I think is compelling, besides the fact that you're doing it and not just throwing in the towel, is that clearly it's less expensive for participants, right? And cost is always an issue, especially when you're dealing with an audience of students, and we all have the stories of kids driving out in a van and Airbnbs and the whole bit, which is great to do that. But now if people take advantage of this, which I hope they do, there are going to be far more people that can that can participate in the convention.
Yes, and that's worldwide.
Right.
PAS is an international organization. I actually constantly looking at it's amazing how many countries are already. People from different countries are already registered for PASIC. It's kind of stunning. I think we're up to 20 different countries already represented, which is incredible. We never have that many in person. If you do, you're going to have Canada, you're going to have Mexico, you're going to have Costa Rica comes on occasion. We always have representatives from parts of Asia, but we're seeing just many more people, which means our message is also getting out there. So that's actually very exciting. But also, here in the States, no matter how far or close you live to Indianapolis, the dates just may not work out, or you may not be able to do it. And of course, there are a lot of other costs associated, right? There is travel, there is food, there is hotel, there is the cost of the convention. So for this year, $50 for a student or $100 for a professional gets you access to the entire time, and all of the sessions will be up through December 31st. So if you don't get to something, you can go back and watch it. You can even go back and watch something right there. So if I wanted to watch Gavin Harrison do a drum set clinic, but at the same time there's a great symphonic thing going on, as soon as I'm done with Gavin's, I can go and watch the because that one will then have been recorded and then put up there, from that point on. So you may not see it live, but you'll go back to be able to see it. The other thing we're doing for this year is for non-percussionists, and we have a whole track for music educators. So whether you're a music education student or if you are currently a K-12 educator who wants those refreshers of those, percussion methods, was probably a long time ago. And so we have a whole track called Fundamentals that our education committee puts on. And we have, I think, 6 different fundamentals plus a few education panels. And you can get all your professional development credits. So once you're done watching it, you can actually go and print out a log of your professional development credits. So we talk to a lot of people like, oh, I'd love to come to PASIC, but I can only go to my state MEA, or I'm going to go to Midwest Clinic. Well, come to PASIC this year and check out, do a refresher on all those percussion stuff. And the same thing, you have up until the 31st to do it. If you actually go to the PASIC website, pasic.org, there is a tab up top that says educators, which gives all the information about for this specific thing for all the educators. I mean, the non-percussion for percussionists, they know PASIC and they're registered and they have a whole, array of sessions. But I'm very excited about being able to offer this. And thinking forward, I actually don't think we'll ever see a PASIC that doesn't have an online component now moving forward. That's just that's just going to be part of it. Like, we're going to be in person again, but we also know that it's also about engagement, right? We also know that not everyone can come to PASIC in person every year, but if we can keep you engaged with PASIC on the years that you can't come, let's say you say, hey, every 3 years I'm going to come to PASIC, right? I'm going to make that investment. But on years 2 and 3, I'm going to join in this virtual environment. I'm still going to be able to learn. I'm going to still feel part of this community. And you can, continue to educate yourself, and we're able to offer that. It's a no-brainer. So that works out.
Yeah, man. No, it's great. And you're absolutely right. I think, I wrote about this the other day, and I've been talking to people about this topic. Anyone that thinks that we're going to put this back, this Zoom virtual, whatever we're calling it, back in the closet or back in the, back in the bottle, put the genie away, whatever stupid analogy you want to use, is just wrong, right? I mean, there's no way that this is going away. And we're looking at,
I would say there's no way. The analogy to me is, we still got to take our shoes off when we go to the airport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like little things, or people don't realize prior to 9/11, you used to go to the gate and meet someone, right? You can't go there. So there are some things that just in the world change. And I think for us, we need to embrace technology now. And it's a way for continued engagement and more inclusivity. We can do so much more with it. You have to be able to embrace it.
No, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, talking, I think the airport connection there is really important. Yeah, because we all, take off our shoes. And then we also have things like TSA PreCheck and Clear and all this stuff that, didn't exist when we were.
It's 20 years ago.
20 years ago. So yeah, I mean, we're with Swanee, we're doing a program in January that's online with a much lower price point than our normal summer program. It's shorter. It's virtual. And, assuming it's successful, which I think it's going to be, it's probably not going away, and we'll have a festival this summer. And if we have an in-person program, which we're still working out with the university, you bet there'll be a digital component to that. I mean, there's just no way there can't be, right? And that's part of the reason why we're doing, with Swanee, why we're doing the January program, is that we want to test the technology in a serious way. We kind of improvised this summer to make it through, and everyone had their own Zoom accounts and, okay, who's running this meeting at this time for, whatever. But now we can't do that, right? The expectation, and this goes to what you were talking about with the planning time you had for the PASIC convention this year, boy, the expectation for online delivery has changed a lot in 5 months, in 6 months, right?
And new technology all the time. Companies are getting smart. They're realizing more and more areas are going to need this, whether it's music or education or business or whatever you may be, are going to be needing this. And so the technology is only going to get better and better and better. Even since we signed up with the one that we're using, there's people are already thinking about like what they're going to use in January, February, and something else already came. And so it's moving so fast. And so it's always going to be a enhancement.
Right.
So, we will, in person is still so important. There's so many things you can't get out of, so I wouldn't worry about that, but I do think, so it's not an and or, It's an and. It is an and. It's not. It's not a. It's an in addition to. That's what I'm going to say. It definitely is an and, not a or.
No, absolutely. And again, we just finished a residency with, like I said, with Third Coast, and you know, among the many things that were, I mean, it was great that we can do it. Our students played a ton. They probably played more for Third Coast than they would have if they were there in person, right? If Third Coast was with us, our students wouldn't have played as much. So for many reasons, it was a great opportunity. Um, but the drag was, man, we're not going to go get to sit and have a cup of coffee with these guys, right? And the students aren't going to get to, because I'll take them to dinner that night and I'll invite the grad students to come with us and they'll get to sit and talk in a much different environment. And, and of course we know how much business gets done at PASIC outside of the convention hall, right? And so, not having that, we're all going to want to go back to those days of being able to gather together and travel and make music together. So that's all coming back. But
It's all coming back. And as Mike Balter told me when I first got this job, the great Mike Balter, was like, in addition to what PASIC is, it's also a family reunion.
Absolutely.
Right? It's an opportunity. And so that doesn't go away. You still want to see your family one day. You want to hang out, like I said. But so that's why I'm not as concerned, because I see this as an opportunity for us every year to get more people involved, more people engaged, who then say, hey, you know what? I do want to go in person eventually, right? So it's a long game. You just can't be like, what are the numbers right now? Right. Yes, in some ways we have to, but I think it's so important that when it comes back, and then utilizing this type of platform to get people excited about supporting your organization and coming in person and experiencing those things in the future. So, we're learning a lot. It's a tough time, but we still have to think about the positives of this time.
Right. And anybody, and we're going to wrap up here in just a second. I've enjoyed this. I hope everyone else has. I do these as much for me as I do for anyone that watches and any of our students that check it out, because I always learn something from any of these conversations. And I think what I'm taking away here is that part of, or maybe all of, being in a leadership position is about service, right? I mean, you're serving the organization that you work for, and the people that are the most successful at this understand that, understand their role as sort of, the word servant sounds a little weird, but in service of the organization, and what you're doing and what you're moving with your team to do, and shift the convention online and be able to, I've seen a ton of content coming out on social media from PAS, new initiatives from the diversity committee, new initiatives to spotlight artists, frankly, just to be blunt, that don't look like me or don't look like you, which is good that you're doing that. And that has always been something that, is mattered. Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because, yes, the volunteers at PAS are really what, I owe so much to them, because there are members who believe in this organization and want to help all they can. And, my job is to listen and help then, do that. And so we have incredible volunteers. Yourself, you've done, obviously as a member, have done stuff, but so many of our chapter presidents and committee members. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up our Diversity Alliance, which is just an incredible group. And I've been working with them a lot and learn from them every day. And you can follow specifically our Diversity Alliance on social media, both on Instagram and Facebook. I would encourage you to do that, because our Diversity Alliance are constantly putting up more information, and it helps all. It's not just percussion. We just did a NAMM event highlighting our Diversity Alliance. And I think this time has allowed us to really focus on those things that are a priority. And that definitely is one. And I actually know that Swanee as well, that is a huge part, making sure that there's opportunity for everyone to have that opportunity. And, something that I really love about Swanee, and some great connections there. So,
appreciate
it. No, it really is. It's true. And, maybe one of these days we need to start an arts management program at Swanee in the summertime. I'm happy to come up there, and in the beautiful back, I'm seeing the picture that, if you
we're floating in the sunset here. If you're watching this,
and you're looking for your students to have a place to go when our camps open back up again, I mean, such a beautiful place. And I would highly encourage that. And like I said, and then if you're interested in in doing arts management, yeah, we'll start a Swanee Arts Management summer program.
Let's do it. I'm ready. We'll start anything. It's some of the best ideas happen. We're not even drinking. I mean, some of the best ideas happen when you have a drink. We have some coffee, right? You have coffee, I have water. So this is a good idea. Yeah. Joshua, it's been great to visit with you. We had a chance to chat last night, and I know how hard you're working for the organization, and also how hard you mentioned that your volunteers and chapter presidents and all that, and it really does need to be said that anyone that wants to be in charge of anything should look at people who are in leadership roles right now. Right? It's not it's a privilege to be in charge of anything. Right? It's a privilege to run a percussion studio. It's a privilege to have any kind of leadership role, but it's not always fun. Right? It's not always easy, and you have to deal with things that you don't always want to have to deal with. I would much rather be, flying to Indy for PAS this year than I don't know where I'd probably be sitting here at the convention. But I'm really glad I get to participate, and it's because of you and your team that we're able to do that. And so thank you. I'll just make sure that I say that.
And anyone, like I said earlier, you can go to pas.org and find my information. If anyone has any question about PAS or arts management, I'm very open. Even during these busy times, I'll get back to people. So, my email address is jsimons@pas.org. Reach out, say hi, keep doing what you're doing. I know that we'll all be back, whether it's Indy or it's in Swanee. We will all be back again and making music in person together again real soon. I'm convinced of that.
I think it's an absolute. I mean, it's going to happen. So until then, we'll keep doing stuff like this, and I've enjoyed the chance to chat with you. We'll get any questions if people have can visit pas.org and pasic.org and email you, talk to your team, and everybody sign up to go to the convention in November. And for more information about that, or to see what we're doing at Swanee in January, you can visit our website. Email me. I'm not as brave as Josh. I'm not going to give out my email address, but I'm pretty easy to find online. And I really appreciate the chance to chat with you. Take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Bye-bye.